interest of answering a question that's not been asked, I thought I'd just talk a little bit about what I use for macro photography. Now, this is a pretty budget type setup because I don't do a lot of macro photography, so it's not something I want to spend a fortune on. So I've got a little bit of kit for macro, and I thought I'd just talk through that and have a look at what I use. So I've got two kinds of sets of kit, I suppose, for macro, both of which are lens based, and rather than tubes and all that sort of stuff, both lens based. And one is the Tamron SP90 macro, which I think I've been using recently, not as a macro lens, but also just as a general purpose 90mm lens. And this one, small lens, quite heavy, well built, not autofocus, manual focus lens. I think it's the BB52 version that I've got. There's a number of versions of it out there. And this one cost me just over £100 a couple of years ago, and it's the Tamron Adaptall fitting on it. And I've added a Nikon fit, a Nikon AI fit. And the reason I used the Nikon AI mount was because I've already had an adapter for for Nikon to Fuji X mount for other lenses. So I also then bought a Nikon to Micro Four Thirds adapter so that I could use it on Micro Four Thirds as well. So the Tamron can be used on both my Fuji X mount cameras and my Micro Four Thirds cameras. The Tamron thing does have quite a lot of kit involved with it. When you look at it, there's the lens itself, there's the lens hood, there's obviously the adapter to whichever camera you're using, plus there's the one-to-one extension tube, a dedicated extension. So there's quite a lot of kit involved. The lens has what I would term a very long focus throw. So it takes a lot of winding the lens to get it down to its macro end. Although something I did notice recently that I've never noticed before was that it does have a macro reproduction rate scale on it, which does come down to 1 to 2 without the extension. So I guess that's half life size. If you want to go down to true macro, i.e. 1-to-1 size, then you need to use the extension, the dedicated extension tube. And as I said, I've also got added to that, I use either of the two adapters for whichever camera system I'm using. So it's quite a lot of kit involved in using the Tamron. But I think at just over £100, I don't consider it to be really very expensive, considering it can also be used as a standard 90mm telephoto. My other kind of setup is another budget thing, really, in that it's the Olympus 35mm f3.5, and this is quite light and feels a bit plasticky, but it's actually quite a large lens. If you look at it next to the Tamron, there's not a lot of difference size-wise, but there's a massive difference in weight, because one's a fairly solid piece of metal and this one's quite plasticky. But what you're seeing is a slightly bigger lens than it would otherwise be, because it's got an adapter, and that's because this is a 4/3 lens. It's a 4/3 macro lens, and obviously I use it on Micro Four Thirds, so I've got an electronic adapter to give it autofocus, and the autofocus works okay on the EM1 and EM1 Mark II. It's not stellar, I don't think. I mean, it's good enough for macro, so it's okay. The autofocus doesn't work on Panasonics. It does become manual focus only at that point, but again, it's pretty usable even as a manual focus lens. And these things, I think the quality of image output is good, and they're available on eBay for starting from about £75. So again, if you add something in for an adapter as well, you're still talking at probably coming in comfortably under £100 for those. And I think if you're just dabbling with a bit of macro now and again, as I do, rather than it being a real focus of my hobby, so to speak, then, and pun intended, then I think that's pretty reasonable. I'm quite happy with that. I've had that lens for quite a few years now. In fact, both of these lenses I've had for quite a few years now, and yeah, I'm really happy with both of them. I'll stick some images at the end of this video just so you can see the type of things that I do with them, and I'm sure you could do a lot better with them as well. But I'm not that focused on macro. Something I like to do now and again.